The screen flickers, a single word pulsing in neon green. Completed. A chill seeps from the laptop's vents, raising goosebumps on Liam's arm. Outside, the city sleeps, but in here, a low hum vibrates through the floorboards, a sound he's never heard before. He stares at the cursor, hovering over submit. What happens if he actually clicks? Welcome, fellow seekers of the strange and unsettling, to Rise with Lim. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. Tonight, we delve into a tale of digital dread that blurs the line between reality and obsession. My apartment, a cramped space in the city's old district, was usually my sanctuary. Most nights, it's just me, my laptop, and the endless stream of online surveys that barely paid the bills. Tonight, however, felt different. A new survey had appeared on my usual platform, promising an absurdly high payout for what seemed like a standard demographic questionnaire. But as I scrolled, the questions grew personal. Not just age or income, but fears, secrets, regrets. A knot tightened in my stomach. This wasn't like the others. The questions delved deeper, probing my anxieties about loneliness, my childhood nightmares, even a secret I'd buried years ago about a misplaced family heirloom. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard, a growing sense of unease creeping up my spine. It felt less like a survey and more like a confession booth. Then the final question appeared, stark and black against the white background. Are you willing to face the consequences of your truths? Yes. No. My heart hammered. The payout was enough to cover 2 months' rent. The lure of financial relief warred with an instinctual dread. My finger pressed down. A jolt, not from the keyboard, but a deep, vibrating hum seemed to pass through my entire body. The screen flickered, briefly displaying a distorted, almost pixelated image of my own apartment layout before returning to a simple "Thank you for your participation." I tried to shake off the strange sensation, dismissing it as fatigue. But as I stood up, the air felt heavier, colder. The familiar creak of the floorboards seemed to resonate with an unnatural echo, and the shadows in the corners of my room seemed to deepen, twisting into unfamiliar shapes. I tried to calm myself, brewing a cup of coffee, but the hum persisted, a low thrumming that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere. My gaze drifted to the framed photograph on my shelf, a picture of my younger sister. But something was wrong. Her eyes, usually warm and smiling, now held a faint, unsettling vacancy, a dark, hollow depth that wasn't there before. A cold dread settled in my chest. Then, a soft scratch came from the other side of my closed bedroom door, distinct and deliberate, as if someone was dragging a fingernail along the wood, just once. Then, silence. My breath hitched, straining to hear past a frantic thumping of my own heart. The scratch at the door had been undeniably real, a brittle, sharp sound that sliced through the humming silence. But now only the hum remained, a low, oppressive thrum vibrating through the floorboards and up into my teeth. I crept towards the bedroom door, my hand shaking as I reached for the handle. Nothing. The hallway was empty, the shadows long and still. Was I losing it? The coffee mug, still warm, trembled in my grip. The hum became a constant companion, a dull pressure behind my ears. I tried to focus on work, but my laptop screen seemed to shimmer at the edges, and the familiar text on my document warped subtly, just for a second. My gaze kept darting around the room. The stack of books on my desk, which I distinctly remembered organizing, now had one volume slightly askew. A framed picture, once perfectly centered, was now angled a fraction off. Each tiny discrepancy chipped away at my composure, feeding the growing dread that my reality was subtly, terrifyingly being rewritten. Desperate for answers, I frantically scoured the survey platform, my worn smartphone clutched tight. The survey link, the one promising absurd riches, was gone, vanished without a trace, as if it had never existed. My search history offered no comfort, just a gaping void where it should have been. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. It wasn't just my apartment changing, it was my memory, my history. I felt a prickle on the back of my neck, the distinct sensation of eyes boring into me from the darkened kitchen doorway, though no one was there. I spun around, my heart leaping, but only shadows greeted me. I stumbled backward, knocking over my coffee mug, the dark liquid spilling across my desk like spilled ink. On my laptop screen, where moments ago I'd been fruitlessly searching, a single black text cursor blinked. Then, slowly, deliberately, letters began to appear, not typed by me, but forming themselves. You said yes. My breath caught in my throat. The words weren't just on the screen. They seemed to resonate in the air, echoing the relentless hum, burrowing into my mind. A faint, distorted whisper, just beyond the edge of hearing, seemed to slither from the speakers. A name I hadn't thought of in years. A name from the secret I'd buried. Emily. The whisper of Emily's name, low and guttural, felt less like sound and more like an invasion. My own secret, dragged from the depths, now echoed in the digital air. The words, "You said yes," pulsed on the screen, a malevolent accusation. My fingers fumbled, scrambling for the power button on the laptop, desperate to shut it down, to sever this connection. But the screen remained stubbornly lit, the cursor blinking, the words searing into my vision. The hum intensified, a vibrating current running through the desk, up my arms, and into my very bones, making my teeth ache. I could feel my sanity fraying, each thrum a thread snapping. I yanked the power cord from the wall with a desperate tug, the screen finally going black with a soft pop. For a fleeting moment, silence. Then the hum returned, now emanating from the walls themselves, a low, resonant growl. My worn smartphone buzzed violently in my pocket, pulling me in. I pulled it out, my screen filled with a static-laced image, a grainy, distorted photo of Emily, her eyes now entirely black, weeping what looked like tar. A notification flashed below it. She's waiting. The air grew impossibly heavy, the shadows in the corners of my room stretching, morphing, no longer just shadows, but grasping tendrils reaching for me. I stumbled back, dropping the phone as if burned. Escape, that was the only thought. My hand found the doorknob, cold and solid, a stark contrast to the swirling chaos within. I flung open the apartment door, desperate for the mundane reality of the hallway, the familiar fluorescent hum of the building. But as I stepped into the dim corridor, a faint, sickly sweet scent hit me, like decaying lilies. On the grimy floor, directly opposite my door, lay a single, withered white lily, its petals brown and curled at the edges. It wasn't there minutes ago. A chill, colder than any air conditioning, settled deep in my bones. My gaze snapped back to my apartment. The framed photograph of Emily on my shelf, the one I'd dismissed as merely off before, was now facing me, but not just facing me. Her eyes, those vacant, hollow depths, seemed to follow my every move. And then, slowly, impossibly, a single drop of something dark and viscous, like the tar from the phone screen, began to well in her right eye, tracing a slow, deliberate path down the glass of the frame. It wasn't just a picture anymore. She was crying, and the low hum in my ears morphed into a faint, distorted whisper, a name repeating, closer now, from inside my apartment. Liam, Liam. Liam, still in the hallway, heard his name. Liam, Liam, echoing from his apartment, a low, distorted sound that seemed to snake around him. The withered lily at his feet, the black tear on Emily's photo. It was too much, too real. He wanted to run, to scream, but a perverse, terrifying curiosity rooted him to the spot. This wasn't just a threat. It was a personal invasion, a grotesque mirroring of his deepest fears. He had to know what was inside, what was calling to him. Driven by a terrifying compulsion, Liam re-entered his apartment, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. The whispers intensified, weaving through the air, sometimes seemingly from the kitchen, then the living room, always just out of reach. He spun around, searching, his eyes darting frantically. The hum was back, now a chilling vibration that felt like it was rattling his very skull. He noticed the coffee mug he had spilled earlier was now perfectly upright on the desk, not a drop of coffee anywhere. His laptop was closed, but a faint, eerie glow pulsed from beneath the lid. With trembling hands, Liam reached for his laptop, the faint green glow illuminating his fear-etched face. He flipped open the lid. The screen wasn't showing the "You said yes" message anymore. Instead, it displayed a grainy, static-filled video feed. It was his own apartment, but from an impossible angle, a corner he couldn't see from, distorted and flickering. And then a figure appeared, a shadow that moved with unnatural slowness, barely discernible, but unmistakably female. It was gliding towards the shelf where Emily's photo sat, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a corrupted video file. On the screen, the shadowy figure reached the shelf, its elongated, spectral fingers extended, not towards the tar-stained photograph of Emily, but through it, as if the physical barrier didn't exist. Then the figure turned its head, slowly, unnaturally, and, for a terrifying split second, its eyes glowed with an identical malevolent blackness to the tar in the photo. As it stared directly into the impossible camera, a single silent scream tore from Liam's throat. But it was not his own. It was a faint, distorted cry, unmistakably Emily's, echoing from the laptop speakers as the screen flickered violently, and then utterly dark. The laptop screen went black, plunging the room into a sudden, oppressive darkness that swallowed the echo of Emily's scream. My own silent scream, trapped in my throat, vibrated with the persistent hum, which now felt less like a mechanical drone and more like a predatory purr. My body was rigid, rooted to the spot, my eyes wide and unblinking, fixed on the inert screen. The air itself felt thick, charged with an unseen presence, a heavy cloak draped over my skin. I fumbled for my worn smartphone, desperate for any connection to the outside world, but the screen remained stubbornly dark, lifeless. Panic, cold and sharp, finally pierced through the paralysis. Escape. That was the only imperative. I lunged for the apartment door, my hands scrabbling at the cold metal knob, twisting, pulling, desperate to break free. But it was jammed, impossibly stuck, as if fused to the frame. The hum intensified, vibrating through the floorboards and up my legs, a palpable force. Faint whispers, a chorus of distorted voices, not just Emily's name, but a jumble of other unrecognizable sounds, slithered from the walls, weaving a suffocating net around me. The shadows in the hallway beyond the door seemed to writhe, forming indistinct shapes that pressed against the barrier. My breath ragged, I spun away from the unyielding door, my gaze sweeping the room for another exit. The window! I threw a chair at it, but the glass, usually flimsy, felt like solid rock, deflecting the impact with a dull thud. Despair clawed at my throat. My eyes landed on the framed photograph of Emily on the shelf. The black tar had spread, consuming her entire face, leaving only two glowing, malevolent black eyes that stared directly at me. In their inky depths, I saw a distorted reflection of my own terrified face, a grotesque mask of fear and disbelief, mocking me from behind the glass. The hum crescendoed, no longer a purr, but a deafening, skull-rattling roar that threatened to tear me apart. The walls of the apartment began to pulsate, a sickening, organic rhythm, as if the very structure was alive and breathing around me. From the darkest corner of the room, near the ceiling, a tendril of pure shadow, impossibly long and thin, began to extend. It moved with a predatory slowness, reaching towards me, its tip tapering into a sharp, needle-like point, dripping with a viscous, black fluid. And then a whisper, louder than any sound, resonated directly in my mind. "You signed the contract, Liam." The shadow tendril, dripping with viscous black fluid, lunged. My mind reeled from the whisper. "You signed the contract, Liam." It wasn't just a threat. It was a cold, inescapable truth. The pulsating walls seemed to constrict, the air growing heavy and foul, like a tomb. I stumbled backward, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, desperate to evade its reach. But the room itself was closing in, a living, breathing trap. The deafening roar of the hum vibrated through my bones, threatening to shatter my very being, drowning out all rational thought. The tendril lashed out, its needle-like tip piercing my shoulder. A searing, icy pain shot through me, not physical, but existential, as if a part of my very essence was being siphoned away. As the tendril retracted, I felt an inexplicable emptiness, a profound sense of loss that went beyond any wound. The whispers intensified, now a chorus of lamentations, echoing Emily's name, twisting it into a mournful dirge. My strength faltered, my knees giving way, and I collapsed onto the grimy floor, staring up at the tar-stained photo of Emily, her black eyes now glowing with a triumphant, malevolent light. Suddenly, clarity. The contract wasn't about money. It was about the truths I confessed, the vulnerabilities I exposed. The entity wasn't just observing, it was consuming. It fed on my fears, my secrets, manifesting them into a twisted reality. Emily, my secret, my guilt was its gateway. As the humming peaked, morphing into a final guttural scream, the tar in Emily's photo pulsed, and her glowing black eyes locked onto mine. A final horrifying whisper filled my mind, not from the walls, but from within me. You are the truth, Liam. You are mine. The world fractured, not literally, but perceptually. The walls ceased their pulsing, the hum died down, but the silence was far more terrifying than the noise. My body felt alien, detached. I tried to move, to speak, but nothing responded. I was still Liam, yet I was no longer Liam. My gaze drifted to my inert laptop, its screen still dark, and then to my worn smartphone, lying discarded on the floor. Both were portals, now sealed, but the connection remained. I had clicked yes, and now I was the consequence. A new, unsettling stillness settled over the apartment, a stillness that had consumed me entirely, leaving behind only the echo of a forgotten life and the chilling realization. The survey was still active, and I was its newest question. Don't miss more spine-chilling tales. Like this video, subscribe to Rise with Lim, and ring the notification bell for new stories every week.